Let's start with Wicca. Wicca is a religion started in 1954 by Gerald Rousseau Gardner when he published his book, Witchcraft Today. After publishing this book, he started his own coven, and throughout the years, Gardner and his coven developed what is known as Wicca today. Amongst the members who still follow the Gardnerian form of Wicca, they are initiated into a coven or group of 10 to 15 members, where members work through varying stages of initiation until priesthood is achieved and priority is given to the priestess. However, there are many forms of Wicca today, though they all hold some key beliefs. Wiccans believe in the goddess, otherwise known as the triple goddess, represented by a crescent moon, followed by a full moon, and then another crescent moon. She is known in the three forms: the maiden, the mother, and the crone. Wiccans also have a healthy respect for nature in all forms. They can be poly or pantheistic, believing in many or all gods and goddesses in one or multiple pantheons. Wicca draws heavily on witchcraft, but is not the same. Witchcraft is a practice. Wicca is a religion. These are only the basics of Wicca, as it is highly developed and as complicated as any other religion. We will have a more in-depth lesson later on about Wicca. If you are interested in learning more about Wicca, consider some of the following books. Wicca by Harmony Nice. She also has a great YouTube channel. And Buckland's Complete Book of Witchcraft by Raymond Buckland. Have you ever walked into a greenhouse or garden center and felt right at home? If so, maybe green witchcraft is for you. Many green witches use herbology to cure ailments. This is the study of herbs with medicinal properties. Has anyone ever told you peppermint helps with a sore throat? Yep, that's herbology. Many people believe you need a green thumb to be green witch, but having a green thumb is a skill that can be acquired. Just because you aren't the best yet doesn't mean you can't improve and learn. This is the same for any other form of witchcraft. Green witches grow their own plants and do many of their rituals and spells outside. Some even have specific outdoor altars. To the green witch, their garden is a place of power and strength. Another thing is many green witches also use kitchen witchcraft. Since many of them grow their own herbs, fruits, and vegetables, they can then infuse that magic into the food they prepare. In that way, green and kitchen witchcraft are very closely related. The crystal witch, one of the most aesthetically pleasing distinction of witches. Kidding. Kind of. Crystal witches are witches who specialize or focus on crystals and their uses in magic and other facets of life. There will be more on crystals and their uses in future lessons. For more information on this before our next lesson, look into the book, Crystal Witch by Sean Robbins and Leanna Greenaway. The eclectic distinction of witch is in which the individual practices many or all aspects of all other distinctions and many or all aspects of other cultures and traditions. The term eclectic is hard to pin down as it is highly up to the individual and essentially just means that they do not identify or fall into one of the other categories. Kitchen witches are exactly what they sound like. These witches almost exclusively practice their magic in the kitchen. They are experts in interweaving herbology and cooking together. These witches use their magic in teas, cakes, soups, stews, and everything in between. Gray, white, and dark refer to the type of witchcraft the individual chooses to practice, mostly in reference to hexes or black magic. White witches choose to only practice healing, positive, or protection magic, while dark witches are the ones that choose to practice or focus almost exclusively on hexes, curses, or other black magic. Gray witches are ones that choose to practice a mix of both.
Cosmic witches. Okay, so cosmic witches are a type of witch who utilizes planetary and celestial energy in their practice. A lot of witches, have a connection to the earth or to water or to plants, but cosmic witchcraft focuses on everything that's like above and below. all of us. It's an umbrella term, so just because it says cosmic witch, that doesn't mean necessarily one thing. There are a lot of different types of witches that fall under the cosmic witch umbrella. So these witches can also be monotheistic or polytheistic, which means they may follow one deity, they may follow more than one. It totally just depends on you and your practice and what you're comfortable with doing. Again, there's no right way or wrong way to do this. So the main types, there's around 5 that are going to be like around the main types. You may hear this referred to more as a celestial witch than a cosmic witch, but you're going to have your stellar witches, and they're primarily going to work with the stars and constellations. Then you have astrological witches, so they're going to work with like the zodiac and astrology and natal charts, which is super cool. Also, there's solar witches, so they're going to work with the sun and different types of solar magics. And if you utilize the sun in your craft, then you're already practicing a type of this. So woohoo, you may be another type of witch you didn't even know about until now. Congratulations, now you know. So lunar magic. So obviously this means that you're going to work with the moon. So you're going to work at moon phases. Sometimes people forget that the sun can also be a celestial body. Same thing with the moon. So this is a lot of where the lunar witches do fall into. And then lastly, there's going to be the planetary witches. So these are going to be witches who work with one or more of the major or the minor planets. And they can be broken down further as well. And I'm just going to give you like a brief breakdown. So typically when they're broken down, you're only going to be working with one planet. But you obviously don't have to stay like confined to that. You're more than welcome to work with more than one planet. So you're going to work with Mercury, and so these spells are going to affect your communication, your intellect, your intelligence, learning, logic, safe travel, business, all that good stuff. The next one is going to be those who work with Venus. So spells crafted here are often going to be like your love spells, friendship spells, fertility spells. So then the next type is those who work with Mars, and these spells are typically going to affect your drive, your vitality, your energy, your passion, your courage. Then you have those who work with Jupiter, and spells here are going to involve luck, good fortune, prosperity, and growth. Then we're going to move on to those who work with Saturn. And witches who work with Saturn cast spells often that do have to include protection, revenge, justice, the law, responsibility, authority, things like that. Next, we're going to look at those who work with Uranus. So this is going to be spells that include technology, maybe the weather or higher thinking, rebellion even. And I'm sure we've got some rebellious witches in this group. I know I'm probably a little bit rebellious when I shouldn't be. Now we're going to move on to those who work with Neptune. So this is going to be like your dreaming, your visions, divination, illusion, psychic connections. If you're an empath and you work with the different types of planets, this is definitely going to be a good one for you. It's where you're going to fall in. And then lastly, we're going to look at my baby Pluto. I do still consider Pluto a planet. I'm super sad that they decided it wasn't. Totally should be. But anyway, if you do work with Pluto, these spells are usually going to be darker in nature. They are going to have to do with the underworld, shadow work, chaos, and even death. So just keep that in mind if you decide this is where you want to, like the planet you want to work with. It's totally okay to do that. Remember, magic doesn't have to be just white or gray. If you do practice dark magic, that's totally okay too. You may want to look into practicing using Pluto, somewhere that you draw your energy from. That's awesome. Obviously with cosmic witches, they're going to be honoring the seasons, mainly because we know, especially that the moon and the sun and the planets, they all do have an effect on Earth and our seasons and water and everything around us just really has to do with the universe. So cosmic witches are really in tune with that. You're also going to have a lot to learn about mythology, which is super fun, I think, especially in terms of cosmic witches, because who doesn't want to work with mythology, right? And it doesn't have to just be great. Planets and constellations are typically named after figures in mythology, so check that out. Learn about who they're named after. How do their stories affect the way that planet is viewed or worked with? It's super interesting. If you are a cosmic witch, I just want to tell you, remember, celebrate those celestial events, seasons, equinoxes, solstices, but so are meteor showers, eclipses, shooting stars, and those are all things that you're going to be able to build your energy from and revel in and just really release your witch nature. Okay, so hedge witches. Hedge witchcraft is typically practiced by people who are solitary in their craft and their path, but that doesn't mean that you have to be. It also is typically eclectic, but again, you don't have to be eclectic or solitary to practice this type of witchcraft. It involves a deep study of plants in the natural world. So when you're looking at hedge witchcraft, you might also find witches who all identify as green witches, because obviously, herbs and plants and nature is all going to fall under that. So don't think that when we say hedge witchcraft, you have to be like just one thing, because again, witchcraft is very personal to each individual, and it can vary. Don't think you have to ascribe to just one thing. The term hedge witch, however, does pay homage to women who often lived on outskirts of villages beyond the hedge, hence the term hedge witch, and they typically find magical intent in routine or just day-to-day activity. So it doesn't have to be anything grand. Maybe it's just your daily routine. You wake up, you take a shower, you go to work, you come home, you cook something for dinner. For a lot of them, everything that they do is magical. They're bringing that into their practice. So that's totally perfect. I resonate with that a lot because I'm super busy. I work full time. I don't always have time to just sit down and, cast or do something super magical. So it's nice to be able to incorporate that in small ways that also feel magical. So throughout the day, I am still able to practice. If you ask any modern hedge witch, they're going to tell you that the reason they call themselves that obviously is going to be an homage to the past. Before, witches often were women, but not always. And they did sort of live on the fringes of the villages, behind the hedgerows, sort of in secret, away from society. And they also did serve a dual purpose, and they acted as healers or cunning women, which is also super interesting because if you know anything about Appalachian witchcraft, that term comes in a lot when you look at grainy witches. So again, I'm from the Appalachian region, so this is something that resonates with me as well. Just going out to gather the herbs and plants in the woods or the fields, or hey, guess what? Even the hedges. So they did typically practice alone, which, as we know, we can probably see why. And they did simple things like brewing a pot of tea or sweeping the floor, and they did that with magical ideas and intention. So again, it wasn't anything super big or grand. It was just, that this is my intent as I sweep this floor. Like, I'm going to sweep out the negative energy. And that's essentially what they did. And, hedge witchery didn't necessarily just happen overnight. A lot of times when you talk about hedge witchery, you're going to see that this is something that's been, handed down through the generations. So a lot of times you are going to have hereditary witches that do fall under this because they're, grandma told mom, who told me, who I told, to my daughter or my son, and then they told to their children. Hedge witchery is sort of similar to the practice of kitchen witchcraft because it does focus on the hearth and the home, and that is the center of all of its magical activity, because your home is going to be the place of stability. It's the place where you can ground yourself, and the kitchen is so magical in and of itself. Like, if you don't spend time in the kitchen, I would urge you to do that. It's so just relaxing and magical, and you're creating something, right? You're creating something that's yours, and people can enjoy it, and you can share it with others, and there's magic in that as well. The home, since it is the core of the practice, the natural world really does form at the root of this. And so obviously your hedge witches are going to spend a lot of time working on herbal magic. They're going to learn associated skills like herbal medicine or aromatherapy. This is going to be super personal to them, and it even is a little spiritual. And I don't mean you have to be religious or you got to love Jesus or anything like that. It's just a deep spirituality in what you're doing, and you're just connected to that. So there's plenty of ways that you can incorporate this into your daily life, like I said before. And they're really just simple actions. So just live mindfully, which is a big thing that people have been throwing around now. But, look at your small domestic task from a different perspective that's sort of more spiritual. Like when you're cooking dinner, or maybe you're cleaning the bathroom, focus on the sacredness of your actions. Are you going to bake some bread or a cake for your family? Great. Fill that with love, because you love your family and you want them to enjoy it. So fill it with love. All you have to do is speak that into the universe, and it's going to be heard. You're going to be heard. Everything in your home is magical energy. So when you walk in after a day at work, or you've gone to the store, or you come back, or you've run an errand, I don't know, greet your house. Thank you, house, for being the place that you can come home to, that can be stable, that can be your sanctuary. And when you leave, tell your house goodbye. Promise you're going to return soon. Get to know the spirits of the land and the place around you. You may not even realize that they're there. But I would encourage you to work with them, maybe sing them some songs, write some poems, give them some offerings, just open yourself up to them. Obviously protect yourself before you do this. Learn to ground yourself, learn to protect yourself, because you don't necessarily know what kind of spirits you're going to be getting. But hedge witches do this a lot. They open their house and their home and their hearth up to the spirits that are there, because more likely than not, these are the spirits that are going to be able to offer you gifts and even protection when you need it, and there's going to be all these plants around your house. So you want to study those. You want to know, what they are. And you don't have to have a garden. You don't have to have a huge yard. Like, plants grow everywhere. So it doesn't matter. Like, oh, there's some 4-leaf clovers, out in my backyard by some trees. Fantastic. Learn about that. Learn how you can incorporate that into your witchcraft. Hedge witchcraft is something that, you definitely may want to explore if you're drawn to certain aspects of the natural world. Do you feel out at home in the outdoors? Are you drawn to nature? Do you feel a connection to herbs and trees and the plants and the earth? If so, then I encourage you, seek this out. Look up some more information. If you have any questions, always reach out to us.
Hoodoo is a type of folk magic that is known as root work or conjure, brought to the United States from Africa. Hoodoo has large roots that date back to slavery. Yvonne Cheroux explains it as tradition allowed practitioners to defend themselves from harm, to cure ailments, and to achieve some conceptual measure of control over personal adversity. Hoodoo has a lot to do with your own ancestry and your own roots when it comes to the conjure itself. Hoodoo is not generally considered a pagan practice and is mostly attributed to Christian beliefs. Hoodoo can also be found in the mountains and hills of places like Appalachia and granny witches and the like. Voodoo is a sensationalized pop culture caricature of voodoo and doesn't heavily rely on voodoo dolls or zombies. There are 3 main types of voodoo: Haitian, Louisianian, and West African. Leslie Domingo wrote that voodoo is a whole assortment of cultural elements, personal creeds, and practices, including an elaborate system of folk medical practices, a system of ethics transmitted across generations, including proverbs, stories, songs, and folklore. Voodoo is more than a belief. It is a way of life. Followers believe in a universal energy and a soul that can leave the body during dreams and spirit possession. Like hoodoo, voodoo originated with the slaves who combined elements of their West African traditions and beliefs with the Roman Catholicism imposed upon them. The idea that zombies are voodoo came from a book written many years ago, but it was not a zombie in the sense of somebody eating somebody else's brain. It was in reference to an African deity. It also came from folk tales of zombie farms in Haiti, where they would bring people back to work as slaves, though no evidence of this has ever been found. Louisiana voodoo is the most sensationalized version of voodoo that we see because everybody knows about it. The main belief of New Orleans voodoo is that one god does not interfere in daily life, but it is the spirits that do. Connection with these spirits can be obtained through various rituals that involve dance, music, chanting, and snakes. The most famous voodoo king and queen are arguably Mary Laveau and Dr. John. Mary Laveau actually learned under Dr. John and went on to become one of the most well-known faces of voodoo that has ever been seen.
Okay, so obviously we talked about a whole lot of different types of witches at this point, and I'm sure that there's going to be some that you're interested in, or maybe that's the type that you are and you haven't heard about it here. That doesn't mean that it's not a thing. It absolutely is. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be whatever kind of witch you want to be. Don't let anybody ever tell you that your practice isn't valid just because maybe they haven't heard about it. So this slide is basically just dedicated to types of witches that are maybe less common or not heard of as much as the others that we've talked about, and these are going to include your Christian witches, sea witches, elemental witches, divination witches, tea witches, coven witches, secular witches. There's a wide variety. If we took the time to list every witch that there was, we would be here forever and ever and ever, just learning about all of them. So just know, just because it wasn't noted maybe in a slide before, that doesn't mean that the type of witch that you are is not valid and that it's not real, because it is. If there's any of these deities that you've seen listed, or maybe there's one that's not listed that you want to know more about, go ahead, reach out to us. We're more than happy to talk you through that, talk about, the type of witch that it is, maybe give you some information on where to go so you can find out more yourself. Deities. Deities are basically gods and goddesses that can be found in all different types of mythology. Doesn't have to be Greek mythology, even though you're probably going to hear that more than you do anything else. But Greek mythology is not the only mythology out there. So if you think that, push that out of your mind. Forget that you know that. I would definitely encourage you to look into like Celtic deities, Egyptian deities, Nordic deities. It's not just the Greek, even though they sort of seem to capitalize on it. So anyway, your main deity is going to be your patron deity. So this can be a god or a goddess. They're going to be your go-to. They're going to guide you. They're going to weave your path with you. They are the biggest player in your spiritual practice aside from you. They are your greatest teacher. They are your link to the energy of all things that are divine around you in your practice. So do you need one? No, you don't have to have a deity. There's a big thing in witchcraft. I see all the time, like, oh, do I have to have a deity? Do I have to have one? Do I have to have one? No, you don't. Is it nice to have one? Sure. It's definitely helpful. I work with Jesus and Persephone, so I do like having one, but don't think that you have to have a deity to be a witch. Also, you can work with a deity without them being like your main god or goddess. You may have like your main one, and then you may work with 7 others if you want to. It's totally up to you. You don't have to, make that commitment all in just one-on-one, and that's the only one you can ever work with. So don't think that either. To find your deity, there is a lot of different things you can do. It's essentially like dating. I wouldn't say like speed dating. Take your time, get to know them, feel them out, but it is a lot like dating because you're getting to know a bunch of them, so it's not like, hey, nice to meet you, see you, bye, but you're really spending time with them, so you're going to want to research them. Which branch of it are you into? The Greek branch of it? Would you rather look into the Celtic branch of it, or the Nordic, or the Egyptian? That's where you need to start. What is the most interesting to you? Who do you feel is calling to you? Who are you fascinated by? This have fun with this. You don't have to be super strict and crazy and like on a schedule and a set type of rules. Have fun with this. These are the people that you're going to be working with, so you might as well enjoy it while you're doing it. So you want to start flirting with the ones who are going to catch your eye. Read their mythologies. Look into some of the artwork about them. Pinterest could be a great starting point for this. Join a course. Read a book. Even do a ritual for them. Maybe to call them closer to you. Check out books at your local library. We may or may not have some available to you. Over time, you're going to meet with a bunch of different ones, and you're going to try connecting with them through the rituals, feeling them out, and there may be a long-term connection there, and if there is, fantastic, go for that. You're going to ask, well, how do I know if I found it? And it doesn't have to be like some big burning bush in the middle of the road with a voice calling out to you like Jane Doe, I am your god or goddess. It doesn't have to be that way. You just might feel it, or maybe you just decide it. Like you read about, I don't know, Persephone, and bam, it clicks, and that's it, and you just know, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be this great big grand gesture. It's really about the power of choice. Because choice is the true power of the witch. Knowing yourself, making decisions for yourself, not giving away your strength and power to something outside of you. You don't passively hand away your responsibility and power, just to fate or destiny waiting for someone else to decide. No, you decide. So, decide. Pick which deity you want to work with and go for it. Alright, witches, we have come to the end of our first lesson. We're so glad that you are here with us, that you experienced this with us, and that we got to do this with you. We just want to remind you that, you don't have to have a title. You don't have to ascribe to one type of witch or another. That's not what makes you a witch. What makes you a witch is the way you feel, is the fact that you say, I'm a witch, that you practice, that you make your craft your own. And that's what you should remember. That's what's most important. You are a witch. You are powerful. You have spoken this into the universe, and that's all you need to do. I mean, yeah, you should probably practice and, perfect your craft and things like that. But you are a witch, and you don't need a title to be a witch. And we want you to remember that going forward. Next week, we're going to be talking about tools of the trade. So we're going to be looking at things like besoms, wands, cauldrons, double, tool and trouble, all that good stuff, all the things you probably think you heard in popular culture and things you probably haven't. We're also going to be looking at the wheel of the year. So we're going to be talking about the different Sabbats, which are going to be the pagan holidays. We're super excited to bring that to you. So hang with us. And then the week after, just a little bit of snippet of what we're going to be looking at. So you think you want to cast. We're going to be talking about all the basics for spell castings. See you next week, witches.